Good morning. Yes, expect to sit through hours of laborious paperwork and then some interesting evidence probably led from high-profile people taking the stand in this inquiry, and I should think quite adversarial cross-examination from some of the legal teams whose clients have been implicated. But also I think that it'll be very interesting to see who actually takes up the invitation to appear before this inquiry at the Public Enterprises inquiry into state-owned enterprises, corruption at state-owned enterprises, the sort of the high flyers, if you like, President Jacob Zuma, the former President Jacob Zuma, Duduzane Zuma, and Dudu Myeni, the Gupta family. They didn't actually appear. Now, this inquiry does have the power of subpoena, and the Gupta family's lawyer has said that their clients do intend to appear before the inquiry at the invitation. But Lawson Naidoo with me for the Centre for the Advancement of the Constitution. Lawson, thank you so much for joining us. Do you see any of the high-profile big hitters, if you like, actually risking it to appear before this inquiry pending a possible criminal prosecution?
Well, indeed, I think we expect them to come forward because this was the very reason that former Public Protector Thuli Madonsela suggested that there should be a Judicial Commission of Inquiry with full powers of subpoena so that those implicated in her state of capture report, as well as the evidence that's come to the fore as a result of the Gupta leaks and work by investigative journalists. There's a lot of information in the public domain, information that came out through hearings that were held here at Parliament. So there's a lot of information. Those people need to come forward. Those with information to testify before the Deputy Chief Justice Zondo, so that the Hawks and the NPA can then do their work and ensure that people are prosecuted.
The rules, I mean, they should come, but the question, I suppose, is will they actually come? But the rules have been amended in order to, it says here, you have the right to remain silent, obviously. A self-incriminating answer given by a witness before the Commission shall not be admissible as evidence in criminal proceedings. So really, the evidence can be used in an investigatorial way, but not to make a prosecution.
Well, I think the essence of an inquiry like this is that it is an investigation. It's not an accusatorial process. It's not a criminal trial. It's bringing information to the surface, and there will have to then be a criminal trial that flow from here, where the burden of proof is totally different, and evidence will have to be adduced afresh in those criminal trials. You can't just rely on what was said in the Commission of Inquiry hearings. So that's been clarified in terms of the regulations, but I think the fact that the Commission has powers of subpoena, they will obviously invite people initially, and if they refuse to come, then they will use those powers, and we certainly hope that they will use those powers to get people like Jacob Zuma, the Gupta brothers, and others that you've mentioned that have been implicated in Thuli Madonsela's report to come forward and to open up to the people of South Africa, because that's what they owe all of us.
I think the inquiry will really shine a light on this parallel state almost that was being run by the Gupta family and that was allowed to operate and really control much of the purse and of state-owned enterprises. Are you expecting there to be any sort of major revelations?
Well, I think a lot of the information is actually already in the public domain. So this is really about a process of collating it in a more structured way, dealing with the specific terms of reference that were outlined in Thuli Madonsela's report, which now form the terms of reference of the Commission of Inquiry. So dealing, like we're likely to hear this week, allegations relating to whether Mcebisi Jonas and Feki Mentor were offered cabinet positions by the Gupta brothers, whether former President Zuma was aware of those overtures being made to them, whether the GCIS under the leadership of Themba Maseko was pressurized into placing advertising with the New Age newspaper and so on to benefit the Guptas. So those are sort of very specific issues of the terms of reference, which we believe can be dealt with very speedily, and prosecution should follow as soon as possible, because we don't have to wait until the end of the Commission's process before that to happen.
Thank you so much, Lawson Naidoo, for joining us. And yes, we've heard evidence here at Parliament of this almost silent hand from Feki Mentor. We heard from an Eskom employee and that how the former president just happened to be in the same room at Saxon World, or the same house, the Gupta house, when they were asked to remove people from positions or put people in certain positions. So there was this almost the shadow, the silent silent hand working, but always at the sort of commercial crimes, you find people at the very top very rarely get their hands dirty. So it'll be interesting to see whether the former president or any of those high-profile Gupta family members do actually appear here before the inquiry.